One.
Welcome back to a very festive episode of the Upper Tier Podcast, the football podcast available on the Dynamo Podcast Network. Head over there, also available on all podcast platforms, as well as now on YouTube. Head over there, hit that subscribe button and that bell notification for our latest updates. And joining me today on this special episode, where we have Arsenal versus Chelsea, we have red versus blue. London goes to war today at 4:30. And joining me in the red corner, making his debut on the Upper Tier Podcast, the Kilkenny Gooner himself, Maurice Shortall, all the way from Cheap Productions. How you doing, Maurice?
Cheap internet.
Well, obviously, I am grand.
Good.
How are you?
Good. And his opponent in the blue corner, all the way from Vinglas via Bray, the man who puts the pod and podcasting, the Dynamo Podcast Network OG himself, Ian, the Dynamo Kelly. How you doing, Ian?
What's up, boys? It's funny because me and Maurice obviously didn't get the memo there because we're both wearing black with white. So, but it's all right.
I said it would look too cheesy if I was wearing a jersey, I think.
Yeah. And as people can see from me, it is Stephen's Day. I've had a long night, you know what I mean? But I'm ready. I'm a professional. I picked myself up and dusted myself off, and we're here to bring you some fucking banter today.
Excellent.
On this London hobby.
I tell you, this festive St. Stephen's Day, always great for football.
Yeah.
So where do we begin with this? Let's set the scene with this now. The scene with this is we've got two managers, both under pressure, but for very different reasons.
Yes.
You have Arteta there clinging onto his job, down wallowing in 15th. And then you've got Frank Lampard there, who's pushing for a top four and also will get back into a title race and trying to figure out what his best front line is. Two managers with pressure on them, but for two very different reasons.
Yeah, we should let the guest. I think we should let the guest start first. Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. So Maurice, give us your thoughts on the situation at Arsenal first, and then also what you're thinking on today.
Well, the situation is grim. It's the worst I've ever seen it, and I can't see where the next win is coming from. I don't expect him to win today. I expect him to lose comfortably today. Aubameyang is missing, our best player. He'll be a loss. And just a real lack of leaders, no one in the centre of the park to take games by the scruff of the neck. Like you look at Xhaka, how many chances that guy going to get? You know, he wouldn't walk into probably any top team in the world, like any top team in France, Germany, England, not a chance. So, and then we have players that have come in, like Willian has been absolutely brutal. Secret agent Willian, Ian.
You're welcome.
Yeah. We always get the good deals.
I know we're gonna have to have. I know you have a couple of links to the to some of the Arsenal boys from the Arsenal Fan TV, so we'll have to get some of them on here for that because there's a few of them that I really want to have a bit of banter with because they were saying thank you Chelsea for Willian, and I respond to that by saying you are absolutely welcome.
Yeah, he done well in the first game against Fulham, and then
he did.
Haven't seen him since.
Done fantastic in that first game, and even in the second game, he wasn't too bad. It looked like, because for once he actually got an assist from a corner. I think in his whole career since he's been in England, and Gabriel scored that goal. I think wasn't that a goal in the second game? Yeah.
I think since he headed off to Dubai and didn't give a damn about COVID, it's all gone downhill, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Do you know what? I think he went there for the paycheck. It's very similar to the David Luiz situation. I don't even, do you know what? Even as a Chelsea fan, like, you know, I do kind of feel sorry for fans always. Do you know what I mean? I mean, look, we're going to have banter and we like rubbing it in, of course, but that it is just banter. But at the same time, some of these Brazilian boys, like the Willians and all, they are mercenaries. You know what I mean? They don't want to move from London. I mean, Willian has a restaurant with David Luiz, doesn't he, in London?
Yeah,
so
they've turned on ex-Chelsea managers before, those guys, you know.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, I think before we set the scene on Chelsea, if you look at Arsenal, really, I think today obviously when you have these London derbies, the form book can go out the window. But I think this time it's slightly different because the gulf is kind of huge. I think if you were to go look at a combined 11, I think, God, 99% of it would be blue, bar a couple of bench mentions as far as I'm concerned. But I think you got to look at it as well. I think with Aubameyang missing today, I think looking at Arsenal playing over the last, say, 8 weeks, I think he's put pressure on the team by his poor form as well. And I think with Aubameyang missing today, I think it's an opportunity for the likes of Saka and Lacazette and guys like that to actually step up. It might release the reins a little bit on them instead of them, because their forward play tends to focus around how quickly can we get the ball to Aubameyang, as if no one else can put the ball in the back of the net. And I think it might be an opportunity, and especially in Lacazette's defence, because he probably wants to put himself in the shop window. So he needs a huge performance today.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be looking at even that kid Martinelli. Like, I mean, he about 2 years ago, he destroyed Chelsea's backline. I remember in a League Cup performance, wasn't it? It was a League Cup or the FA Cup or something. And
I think it could have been the league. I think it was a 2-2 draw. I think it was.
It was. He got the equaliser near the end. He ran through and one on
Kante slipped.
Yeah. Jesus, he done a Steven Gerrard on it, like.
Yeah.
I think there's a young fella though for Arsenal there, that Balogun. Have you heard of him? He's hammering in goals in the under-23s, but I think he's going to Liverpool now. From what I've been reading.
I didn't hear anything about that, but I'd be happy enough to hear that.
Yeah. He's supposedly going to Liverpool in January, so that's I don't think why he's getting the game time, but he's supposed to be very good.
Yeah. I believe I was listening, one of the things that came up there during the week, I was listening to some of the other fan channels and stuff like that. And one thing that came through was Rob Holding as Arsenal captain. And the comments were that Rob Holding wouldn't captain Burnley. He wouldn't captain Brighton. He wouldn't captain Fulham. And the question was, how is he getting in as a captaincy in a team the size of Arsenal? Which was a very interesting point.
Even since the Wenger days, the captaincy, was going with 5 captains, and then Emery went with 5 captains. And the armband doesn't really mean anything at Arsenal, I don't think, anymore, because it's just passed around like a hot potato. Like, you even look at Aubameyang, I don't think striker should be captain anyway. I think it needs to be someone leading from the back or the midfield. So with regards to Holding getting the armband, I'm not surprised. Staffy got it as well, and he's supposedly on his way out too. So, I don't think the armband really means anything. They need to give it to someone that's a leader. I think maybe Thomas Partey or Gabriel down the line could be potential captains. Who knows?
I'm kind of with Maurice on something he said there at the start about the Arsenal midfield. And that's really, I think, what's killing Arsenal. And definitely the sense that I'm getting from listening to, Arsenal fans talking as well. They don't really have that solid midfield. You look back in the day, the Batiz, the Vieiras, you know what I mean? And even, like, not everyone can be at that level, fair enough. You know what I mean? I know that's a different era. But you're right. I mean, Xhaka, what's the guy that had the fight with David Luiz? Ceballos, is it? Am I pronouncing his name correctly?
Ceballos,
Yeah, I'm not that.
Weak player.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? They don't have Partey now. I would give him a chance because I watched him for Madrid and he looks like he's a good, solid player. That kind of SEM player, he has that kind of potential. And I think you need to build a midfield around him. Why not even put David Luiz back in midfield the way they used to, the way Mourinho used to? Do you know what I mean? Because, I mean, that boy is a liability just in general at his age. Like, I mean, he aged that last year that he was with Chelsea as well. I mean, Niall was a big fan of David Luiz, I know. And we actually had that conversation. Just within that season, he just aged badly. I don't know whether his legs had gone. He wasn't getting on the end of headers the way he used to. His free kicks were all over the place. And, I would think a little bit of, I suppose, man management and listen, a little bit of management in general for Arteta, because he's nothing to lose. Why not try something like that? Why not try David Luiz in midfield there? Do you know what I mean? Put him on the likes of a Mason Mount or something like that, because, as I say, I don't think Arteta has anything to lose at the moment.
No, he's going to have to do something today anyway to mix things up, because I just can't see them winning today. I can't even see them getting a draw, to be honest. I think like if they lose today and lose badly, I think the manager could be gone. But they seem to be going to stick by him. But you can't stick by him if they're going to be 15, 16. Like, it's too low. I expect them to finish around 8 this season at the start of the season. Now that's looking unlikely.
Yeah, I think a couple of the issues I look at there. One is he continually keeps on picking underperforming players. Now, we might argue that maybe he hasn't got a lot of options there, but I mean, you have to try and do something. Even if you're going to bring lads up from the 23s or something like that, you have to do something different. You can't keep on picking underperforming players, because that's when your fan base turns on you. And two, I suppose, with Poch out of the way now and looked like he heading to PSG, I think with Tuchel being available now, I think that heaps a bit more pressure on Arteta, because I think he could very well be the man to pop in there, you know. And I just think it's I think they want to stick by Arteta because it looks really bad. But I think on the other hand, as you said, Maurice, how far do you let it go before you have to make a change? And if you're going to make a change, you kind of need to make a change quickly. Look at West Brom. West Brom the other day went out, got a draw against City and sacked Slaven Bilic straight after. You know what I mean? Yeah. And bring in Sam Allardyce, because they recognise that Big Sam may give them the chance to grind out a few results, and maybe they might be able to survive. But there's a lot of key fixtures today, and this fixture is huge. This is Chelsea propelling themselves back into a title race and cementing the top 4, or Arsenal, you know, hovering around that bottom 3. I don't think there's been a more significant London derby with both these poles apart in recent times. I think it's so significant on both managers. And I expect this to be, I don't expect this to be too one-sided. I expect this to be a proper battle. Those Arsenal players are hurting. They need to get out there. They want to step up. And if you're going to step up, it's going to be a Chelsea or a Tottenham game, isn't it? That's where you got to step up. If go missing today, then you guys are really looking at a proper relegation team here. Because if you're fit for the battle against Chelsea, you ain't going to be fit for the battle against Brighton, and you're certainly not going to be fit for the battle against West Brom. So that's my feeling on it, you know.
Yeah, let's. I suppose you, as the host, Noel, you wanted to get onto a bit of Chelsea there as well, and we can probably look at where the differences are or whatnot. And then I suppose get on to today's game then, as far as how we see the areas won and lost or whatever. Yeah.
Well, you take it up there, Ian. Then if you want to jump onto Chelsea there, who have had a slight little dip there where they lost 2 games and then bounced back with I wouldn't say a good win against West Ham. I'd say kind of, you know, a grinded out, because there was a lot of pressure to deliver that result against West Ham. A draw or another loss would have looked really bad and heaped a lot of pressure on Lampard as well, especially with the resurgence there of United jumping back into the top 4 and stuff like that. It was imperative that Chelsea went out and got a result against West Ham. And you could feel the nervousness in them in that game. I know they went 1-0 up, and I know the scoreline, you even said it to me the other day, didn't really tell the tale of the performance. But I mean, sometimes when you're in that battle, you got to win dirty, you know?
Yeah, I'd agree. That's kind of, I suppose I've actually went back and watched the game again to kind of look at, you know, what it was. And I suppose I was a little bit harsh at the time saying, look, it was 3-0, the scoreline flattered to deceive. However, at the same time, I mean, Timo Werner is just very unlucky at the moment. You know what I mean? He's in a bit of one of those where he's hitting. I think he hit the bar twice in that game. And that game on paper could have been about 5 or 6-0, but it wasn't because of constant attacking onslaught from Chelsea. Do you know what I mean? What happened was, and what has happened, and I think this is what Lampard is trying to really get out of these players, is that they go 1-0 up and then they sit and relax and they pass out from the back in a very old school Italian kind of way. It's playing with patience, but it's constant backwards. And you look at certain players, and this is going to be controversial. I mean, Jorginho, you know, the Chelsea fan base is so divided on Jorginho. It's ridiculous.
Wasn't he close in to joining Arsenal during the summer, Jorginho?
Was, yeah. I heard a rumor as well that Arsenal were possibly looking at him again in January. I don't know whether he'd be the answer to an Arsenal problem, to be honest with you. you know, sometimes he'll pass the ball like Fabregas every now and then and hit these amazing true balls. But his general style of play, if you look at him, and people saying, "Oh, sorry ball, he's a real captain material." All he does when another player has the ball is point backwards. Oh, pass it back, pass it back. And it's the same with Azpilicueta, who I don't like really judging or saying anything bad about because, you know, he's a legend at the club. But it's the same with Azpilicueta. Everything is backwards. It's just passing back all the time. And what happens is teams then start to get the higher press, you know what I mean? And they push up a little bit further and they kind of stabilize themselves in their press. And then what happens is, in my opinion, is that Chelsea then bring unnecessary pressure on themselves because they're not getting the ball forward. When you have a Timo Werner there, who is a striker, by the way, a centre forward, and a very, very good one. I mean, what did he score? 38 goals last year or something like that? I think he's over 30 goals the last 4 years. And you're playing Tammy Abraham, who on paper looks like he should be a Didier Drogba at 6'5", but literally can't hold the ball up to save his life. And I know he got the 2 goals at the end, and they were poacher goals, and I was happy for him. But Timo Werner is your guy, and if he's not your guy, then Giroud is your guy. Do you know what I mean?
I would imagine that Giroud will definitely play today.
I would have thought so, Maurice, yeah. And I think today it's different. I understand sometimes when Giroud plays up there, if you're playing Werner on the wing, I can understand that because Giroud is amazing at holding the ball up and bringing other players into play. But yeah, I think the problem is Chelsea need to go for the jugular. The only thing I will say, without going on too long here, is that they did show me something the other night. As Niall said, it was a pressure situation. They needed that win in a London derby. West Ham are very set up very nicely. They actually do set their team up pretty well. They're not getting hammered the way they used to, no pun intended. And I think that was a kind of an old Mourinho type performance that Lampard got out of his team, and I was happy to see that from a fan point of view, you know, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially when I mean, you're looking at a West Ham team there that were informed. They were putting together results.
Yeah.
So on paper, it didn't look like it was going to be an easy trip either, you know, because they're in form. You were coming off the back of 2 losses. Pressure was on you guys. Pressure isn't really on Chelsea. It's not like or on West Ham. It's not like they're going to be in the title picture or top 4 or potentially even the top 6. You know what I mean? So they really had nothing to lose. You know what I mean? And with the start that they've had, they're under no pressure really from the bottom half in terms of the bottom 3. So those positions are nearly. But yeah, so where do you guys think the key battles are in this at the moment? Where's going to be the battles on the pitch? Well, we're thinking as if he plays Giroud's just going to constantly entice David Luiz and he's just going to play him like a ukulele basically, you know. And then, you know, you could see David Luiz, if Giroud plays up front, you could see David Luiz getting booked pretty early in this game for something.
Walking on a tightrope then.
Absolutely then. And then that just gives Giroud that license to go in on him constantly, you know. So that to me would be a key battle there. Would
you guys agree that Lampard might be looking at that? Because, I mean, look, nobody knows David Luiz better than the Chelsea lads, you know what I mean? I don't even think Giroud would hold him off and get him frustrated, but do you think he might be asking the likes of Pulisic and Werner, who are 2 pacey players, to run at Luiz as well? Do you know what I mean?
100%.
Yeah?
Yeah, because if you look at the problems recently with the discipline and, you know, if one of those guys gets a yellow card early, they're under serious pressure then for the whole game.
Yeah.
But if you look from the very back, right, from the 2 goalkeepers, you finally addressed your goalkeeping problem at Chelsea, finally. You know, with Kepa.
Finally.
But our goalkeeper, lads, he's fucking useless. Like nobody gives him any stick. He can't catch a ball. You know, I think from the back, even the goalkeeper for us, he just doesn't do it for me. I think he's overrated. Hence why he doesn't play any games for Germany.
In fairness, you have to be at a certain level to be breaking into a German team as well. But I'd also say, Maurice, I mean, at times he's been decent enough, you know what I mean? But like when you've got 4 lads that he has in front of him as well, it wouldn't exude confidence either, you know what I mean? And as a Liverpool fan, we have felt that with years with Mignolet, Karius, all the way back, you know what I mean? Like you're not going to have a good goalkeeper if your forward is shady in any way at all, you know what I mean? Because it's the unit. As soon as we brought in Alisson and we brought in Virgil van Dijk, like, poles apart. Poles apart. He has no protection up front whatsoever. And if you look at the start of the season, he's basically stood there like a space invader in the middle of the goal, getting shots blasted at him. You know what I mean? So it's hard to judge him.
I think Martinez was a better goalkeeper, though, lads, that they sold.
Yeah.
7 clean sheets this year now in the league.
That's true. And I think it's 50-50 what Maurice is saying there, because it's kind of a different situation to the Chelsea one. Chelsea were very, for the first time in 20 years, they had a goalkeeper who was a stocking, basically. Do you know what I mean? I mean, don't forget they had Cech for that many years, then Courtois, and then Kepa comes in and all of a sudden says, what in the name of Jesus is going on? So in that case, it was kind of sometimes the defense were getting blamed on situations where the keeper should be saving. Do you know what I mean? And the setup with this zonal marking, because you know yourself, lads, this zonal marking thing, it's a fine line between making it work and making it not work. You know what I mean? Rafa Benitez for a while had it down for a little while, but then he was getting criticised because they were leaking goals always at set pieces. So I think with Arsenal's situation is that the goalkeeper probably is being made look worse from his defence that he has in front as well. So it's it's so strange because Arsenal for the last probably 10 years have not had a good defence. It's just crazy. Like they had the Mertesacker situation. They just have these guys, these centre-backs that are just inclined not to be professional and have moments of madness, but on an all too regular basis. I don't know whether you agree with that, Maurice.
Yeah, Koscielny even was a bit erratic when he was there. Thomas Vermaelen as well, always injured.
Who was the Brazilian guy you had as well? He used to always get into it with Costa, remember?
Gabriel Paulista. Yeah, he plays for Valencia now.
Yeah. He was a bit of a nut job as well at times.
Should have held on to him, I think, as well.
But that's what you want. But he was a good nut job. You know what I mean? He's a good, solid defender. But it's so strange when you think of Arsenal, because one thing you think over the last 20 years when you look at an Arsenal and a Chelsea and you think of players like Tony Adams and Martin Keown, you expect better. And I don't know, is it true? Like, I haven't seen enough full Arsenal games this year. I know you actually mentioned this, Niall. It was probably something you were going to bring up. Is it a thing that he's actually setting up defensive at home against teams that, he could be going for on the attack against?
I think when you look at it, he seems to, they're very, very scared of conceding, because with the lack of goals and stuff like that and the lack of form from Aubameyang and stuff like that, I think they're really concerned that if they do give away a goal, the best they can hope for is a draw. And I think he's very concerned. I think he's looking to put together a run of clean sheets. And because of that, he's inviting teams onto him. And he's inviting teams onto him that never should be attacking Arsenal in reality. You know what I mean? But they drop so deep. And then when you've got guys there like Hector Bellerin and, those type of guys, and then you've got guys there like Willian and Pepe and guys like that who don't track back and don't help and assist in that defence at times of weakness. It's a real concern. They're exposed all the time. Bellerin, I think, fancies himself as a forward really more so than a defender. You know what I mean? And he's forgotten the art of defending really. And yeah, he's definitely setting up, and it's a very dangerous place to be in 15th, sliding down the table like that. To be setting up not to lose is a very dangerous world to be living in for an Arsenal team. Very, very dangerous, because you will get caught. There's no doubt about it.
It's okay setting up like that, like he did in the FA Cup when he bet Chelsea and Man City and the good end to the season last year. If you're setting up in a couple of weeks with 5 defenders against West Brom, it's madness.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, that's what you could be looking at. That's actually what you could be looking at, because I'd say looking at those, if you look at the games today, or the game today, I think you'll know very quickly in the game whether he sort of rolled it off. You know what I mean? But then when you look at coming up, you've got Brighton next, and then I think you've got West Brom. I think Arteta would be happy to get 2 draws there with 2 clean sheets. I really do. And I mean, that says a lot about where Arsenal is at the moment as a club. You know what I mean? If that's your expectation, I mean, if you think about it, you said earlier, Maurice, your expectation was top 8. Isn't that an absolute disaster? That even your expectation would be top 8. You know what I mean? And now you find yourselves in 15th. And I'd fear for Arsenal. I don't think they will get relegated. I think they might be in a relegation battle, but I don't think they'll get relegated. I think they will have enough to come out. But We all said that years ago about Leeds as well, and it's really, really worrying. And no club is too big to go down. We've seen it with Newcastle, we've seen it with Blackburn, we've seen it with Portsmouth. These are all big enough clubs, you know what I mean? And they all slid down. Once you go into that bottom three, it's very, very hard to climb back out of that at times because everyone's fighting for their life down there. And you're potentially coming up against two relegation teams in your next two fixtures after Chelsea today. So that could be a very interesting week ahead for Arteta.
That being said, if they were to get a run going, and it doesn't look like it's coming at the moment, but if you got a run of games there and you won 6 or 7, got a couple of draws, you'd be right back in the mix then in around 6 or 7 in no time.
Yeah, well, assuming what happens up that end of the league as well during that run of 6 or 7 games. But I just look at Arsenal. I don't think they have a run of 2 games in them. That's my fear for them. My fear for them is Arsenal could go out today and they could beat Chelsea, and then they could lose to Brighton and West Brom. And that's the way I've looked at Arsenal. I mean, there's no consistency there. He's not sure who to be picking, and I think he's picking players because he doesn't want to create this massive unrest in the dressing room that I think is already there because of the treatment of Ozil.
Yeah, Ozil and Socrates. Yeah.
Yeah, I think players are majorly pissed off because of the treatment of those players. Right or wrong, you have to make a decision on these things. But if you go with that decision, you better have the kind of stature to back it up. You know what I mean? And a lot of people are saying as well, oh, Arteta's in there as well. Remember, if you look at Mikel Arteta, he wasn't really a legend at Arsenal the way Frank Lampard was a legend at Chelsea. So you don't always get afforded that time, and you don't always have that support. And then you have Adu. He's looking after the technical direction and stuff like that and all the stuff that, and he's coming out and he's supporting them and stuff like that. But again, even for him, like he's up there looking from a distance. He has to be seen to be going a certain way, you know what I mean? But I'd imagine he's the kind of guy there as well that like he'd show you the door in a second to save himself. You know what I mean?
I'd say they're 2 yes men, and that's why they're there.
Yeah. And probably very cheap.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. But, it's funny because you kind of look at how the differences in managers, I suppose, that are both relatively, early into their career. You look at how Arteta has handled the Ozil situation and Socrates, and then you look at how, for example, that you didn't even know was going on in the background. You lads probably aren't even aware of this, whereas Marcos Alonso has just been off you go, play with the reserves, forget about it, because he dared to speak out against Lampard, and it was just like, okay, see you later then. And that's the difference, and the reason that if that was probably any other manager at Chelsea, that would probably be all over the newspaper. But because it's Lampard and the respect that he demands and commands from that locker room, nobody's a bigger club legend than him. Even if Ronaldo came into the club, do you know what I mean? So he commands that respect. I'd agree with Niall there. I don't see Arteta as that guy that commands any kind of respect or, comes across as a nice guy and all. But you're talking about him coming from, from the Guardiola school of coaching. I don't see any of that, to be honest with you. So far, there's been spells of it, like Maurice said. I don't want to be all doom and gloom on Arsenal, but I am having fun watching it too. I'm not going to lie. But no, it's all joking aside, he just doesn't. To me, doesn't look like a consistent coach that knows exactly what direction he wants to go in. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's troubling times for Arsenal. I mean, just look at Arsenal fan TV. Lads are smashing phones. Lads are nearly having on fights with each other. It's definitely it's definitely a very toxic feeling around the club at the moment. And I think fans who are very passionate and loyal in London anyway for their teams, very territorial, which Maurice. It's a very territorial. It's a different kind of fan base in London, to the likes of the Newcastles and the Liverpools. But they get a raw deal sometimes in not supporting their clubs the way some of the Midland clubs and the Northern clubs do. But they really do feel passionately about their clubs in London. And it must be very, very frustrating to see Arsenal where they are, because look, it's like Leeds back in the Premier League. We want those big games. You know what I mean? We want those big rivalries. And it's like Liverpool don't want to win a league, for example, although Liverpool might, because they'll take Anton. But because you've been waiting that long, I suppose, to do 2 in a row this year. No, but all joking aside, Niall, you understand what I mean here. When you win the league, right? Obviously, last year Liverpool won the league without even having the fans properly in the arena and stuff like that, and that was just unfortunate luck or whatever. But when you do win the league, you want to know that you won it against the best teams, not because it's like a boxer, right? It's like a boxer. Anthony Joshua isn't going to, Tyson Fury isn't going to beat Anthony Joshua with only one leg. Do you know what I mean? Because there'll always be a question mark over it. And it's the same with Liverpool. They beat the best Man City last year, hands down. And this year, they want to beat the best teams that are around them too. There is that little bit of pride within the clubs as well. I don't know whether you disagree or agree, but you understand what I'm saying. You kind of want to beat teams that are the best teams, you know what I mean? Rather than, I suppose having that blank checkbook that Chelsea supposedly had back in the day, like which, all clubs did, but we beat the best United back then. Do you know what I mean? We beat the United with the Roy Keanes and the Ronaldos back then, regardless of signings. And there's a feeling of accomplishment when you do that. And the thing about Arsenal is they were always up and around there. Same with Leeds, they were always up and around there. So you want these teams to succeed in a way, but not too much, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You want them to be still relevant.
Yes.
And you want them still in there. There's no fun in winning a foregone conclusion.
There you go. That's exactly it. You put it much more articulately than me, than my little segue.
But as a Liverpool fan, I'll take it anytime. It's grand.
Yous are just whores, yeah. You what have you? Who's that Chelsea legend you have in the background there in that room there, Noel? Can you just turn? Oh, Fernando Torres.
I hung that up there. I hung that up there for you.
Fair play to you, appreciating a Chelsea legend like that. A man who won a league and a Champions League and all. Fair play.
I never thought we'd be 30 minutes into the podcast before you realised it was there.
It was just I noticed your head moving and I was like, "There's Fernando, my boy, Chelsea's number 9."
That's it. Blue is the colour, huh?
Blue is the colour. But no, actually today, I actually am interested in having this conversation with Maurice because here's how I feel how the game goes. Bellerin, for some reason, always puts on a fucking Superman outfit when he plays Chelsea. That little prick always ends up scoring a belter of a goal or something, and it's usually late in the game. I'm going to predict, or I'll give my early predictions. I'm going to predict 3-1. I can't see Arsenal getting a goal. I predict 3-1, but I think it could be because, again, it's one of those things where Lamps has to win, but at the same time, a draw away from home isn't the worst result. You know what I mean? However, I don't think either of them would be happy with a draw, though, either. No, I don't think Lampard would be going for a draw, to be honest with you. And Arsenal need to win because it's their, pretty fierce rivals coming to their territory. I don't know. Do you think that the lack of fans has hurt certain clubs more than others? There's a question.
Yeah, I definitely think it has. Speaking as a Liverpool fan, even, you know what I mean? I mean, we're all about the fan base. We're all about the cop. We're all about those special.
Yous are performing, though. I'm saying, in terms of performances, I mean, do you think it's actually hitting certain clubs more than others? I think it's hurting some of what would have been considered the top 4 more than it's hurting the smaller, let's say, the lesser teams.
I think it's given them an advantage. I think the smaller teams, less fear.
Yeah, especially when they go away from home.
Yeah. That's what I mean. That's what I mean. Like you see the Burnleys and all going away. Look at Aston Villa. They've benefited tremendously from it. I mean, Aston Villa are in a title race at the moment, and they've got players like Ross Barkley who they got on loan and is performing amazingly. Which is very funny because when he was playing for Chelsea, he was getting in the England squad. And he was shit, and now he's playing for Villa, playing really well and not getting in the England squad. So just thought I'd throw that little nugget in there to show how corrupt that selection.
He's injured.
Yeah, he's injured at the moment. I know. Yeah, but no, I mean I think Arsenal might be one of those clubs that have really, really kind of not to make an excuse for them or anything, or to give anyone an excuse, but I think certain clubs like Arsenal and maybe City, although City don't have many fans anyway, do they? So it's kind of one of those, they can't really use that excuse. But yeah, no, I do think that's possible. But yeah, my prediction today, 3-1. I was going to go for Chelsea. I think the scoreline might make it look more clean cut than it is. I think there will be a battle for a while, but I do think Chelsea's pace in the front line, and I think the midfield battle will be a foregone conclusion if he plays with his strongest midfield with Kante, Mount, and possibly Havertz. I would go with again. I think I'd still stick with him in the midfield, but I think if he goes with that midfield, I think Arsenal will struggle to contain that. And then obviously the front line is just so pacey. I think Lacazette, I think there's enough in the Chelsea back line to kind of stop any kind of major threat from Arsenal, but I do think there will be a goal, in there for Arsenal. But my prediction will be 3-1. But I do think the game is going to be won in the midfield.
I think if Chelsea score early, I think it could be 3 or 4-1. I think the longer the game goes on, it may finish a draw.
I'd agree with that. Yeah, I'd agree with that. Niall?
Yeah, I think I'm looking at quite a cagey, tight game. I'm hoping that Arteta doesn't sit back and try and protect things. But I think it'll be a cagey kind of chess battle for about 20 minutes. But then I think you're going to see a lot of constant Chelsea pressure there. And I think they'll eventually wilt to that pressure. And to be honest, even today, I wouldn't even be surprised if Timo Werner gets switched a bit into the middle as well to have a go at those centre-backs. I think if they do switch him back in there, God help that Arsenal back line if Timo Werner is shooting from the middle of that goal, because he will net a bag load today. But that would be my fear. I hope it's a tight game. I hope it's competitive. I don't have any reason on both managers either way. You know what I mean? I appreciate what both are trying to do and what both are doing. But I say it being a tight game. I could say that if Werner switches in, it'll be very different. If he doesn't and they stay true to form, I think you're looking at a tight 2-1 pending. And you know something? Only a tight 2-1 maybe if Arsenal score first. I think Chelsea could still come back into it. As you said, Maurice, if Chelsea score first, I think Arsenal could be in trouble because they'll revert back to the nervousness and the scariness that we've seen in the other games. And I think when you're up against a Chelsea side with the quality of their midfield and the quality of their front line, it's going to be very intense pressure non-stop, probably for 60, 70 minutes. And it's how good that back line at Arsenal can hold out or keep the score down to a respectable scoreline. That's how I would see it going.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. So I think it's up to you now, Maurice. You're the final one for the predictions to finish us off.
I'll go with your score. I'll go with 3-1 as well, I think.
You think 3-1?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just can't see where the next win is coming from at the moment. But if they were to somehow nick a win today, then maybe he'll be able to save his job, bring those two boys back into the squad in January, Ozil and Socrates. I think he just has to, just for morale, if nothing else, because the checkbook won't be coming out anyway. So I'd say 3-1 anyway.
Okay, interesting. Okay, well, that about wraps it up, doesn't it, really, in terms of our preview for Arsenal versus Chelsea. So I'd like to thank Maurice for coming on and making his debut. You'll catch Maurice over on GP Productions there, doing podcasts and all sorts of promotional work and stuff like that. And also for Ian the Dynamo Kelly, our man in the blue corner. Thanks for jumping on, guys, on a festive period. And enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the football. Always a belter today. On St. Stephen's Day, not Boxing Day, St. Stephen's Day. Have a good day and enjoy your week. Thanks, guys.
Cheers, lads.
Appreciate it. Happy Christmas, boys.
Enjoy